Hiya, I'm on my walk in Alice Holt Forest, which is a couple of miles from Farnham, and it's a lovely sunny spring day, and I wanted a quick recap on where I've been these last few weeks and where I find myself right now, talking about in a psychological, emotional way. So there's a big build-up to breaking convention. I did the work I could do. There was so much more work to be done, but I, in the end, just had to focus in to what was needed for a 20-minute presentation. And I did that, and I had an amazing time there. 4 days of meeting amazing people, talking, having great conversations. So much more could have been done, but I felt a little bit restricted. I was on the train, set to go back a certain day. I was thankfully able to stay at the university. I'm very grateful for moves being made to find a way to help me out. Friends have helped me out, and it was well received. The talk was well received, and I had a university student interview me. I was on a podcast. Some people have joined my Substack. But in the days since I've kind of gone through, it's been a week and a bit. I went through a real downer. A bit flat, I guess, is the natural post climax, kind of anti-climax of coming back from something where you put a lot of effort into making happen. With all the help I had, which I did have a lot of help, I had to make it happen, and I was confident that I would. I was nervous, but I made it happen. But then coming back, I realised, a few things happened. There's the need to write it up, and I felt a little bit like there's so much I want to say again. I kind of run myself into a corner, like what is the right thing to say? Thinking about my own blog and the fact that it's still a work in progress. I'm still trying to gather people to follow my writings. There's so much writing out there, so many really, really well professionally put together podcasts and blogs. So it's a saturated market, quite frankly, and psychedelic field itself has become this hugely diverse and popular market, but mainly around the science, but not only. The cultural side of things is starting to make its presence felt. My issue with that is I've often stood on the outside of that. I wouldn't say I'm so, a cool underground figure or anything, but I kind of always took the countercultural perspective. I understood the culture, the psychedelic culture itself, and the spiritual culture and its transgressive nature. And what I'm noticing now is the new crop of journalists and culture critics tend to be coming from the same white, middle-class, privileged background that kind of was part of the psychedelic community at the beginning, has to be said. Humphrey Osman and Aldous Huxley, etc. So it's not that this hasn't existed and didn't exist in the first place. It's that there's been a resurgence of it. Excuse the runner. There's been a resurgence of a kind of re-establishing of power dynamics. That's how I see it. Even in the 60s, Timothy Leary, even Terence McKenna, these are essentially the professional class, ethnobotanists and people who've gone through medical school, or they represent a power structure that has existed and has always existed. What happened in the 60s And I'd say specifically what happened in the 80s was a branching out into the wider culture and of these substances. In the 60s, mainly LSD. In the 80s, mainly MDMA, or ecstasy as it was called at the time. These had powerful transgressive effects on the culture, challenged the systems we were living in, what we saw as oppressive systems. It coincided with the politics. It's not necessary that one informs the other, but certainly psychedelics lead to a breaking down of assumed authority structures. So that can lead into all sorts of transgression, but the nature of the counterculture is transgressive. So what I'm noticing with certain journalists who are now taking the space, talking more on the culture, is to point to the fears around alternative spiritualities, really, whether it's dodgy shamans, ayahuasca shamans, or whether it's not good practice in certain MDMA trials, using what are seen as pseudoscientific ideas from Stan Groff. There's this, and it's coming from journalists who are very good at what they do, and you might even say a left of centre or even radical left. But the effect it has is to focus on the very nature of transgression. It's ostensibly for the health and safety of the public, but it's determining who decides what that health and safety is and what is done for those who contravene. And that's what I call biopolitics. That is what Foucault called biopolitics. It's what Giorgio Agamben called biopolitics. It's the way institutions and their supporters enforce ethical, cultural ideas which seem to be best practice and best for all. So yeah, that's a lot to write down, and me finding the spot and the time has been difficult these last few days, but this sunny weather coming back and me walking here has kind of given me back a little bit of a lift. So have a good day, and I've got walkers and talkers coming, so I'll have to stop there. Thanks for listening.